My husband faked his disappearance. I, 48 female, have been married to my husband, 55 male, for 7 years. It has not always been blissful. We have had many problems, but nothing compares to the most recent events. 3 weeks ago, I took my elderly mother on a trip to celebrate my birthday. In years past, my birthday has been forgotten by my husband or otherwise a huge letdown, so my mom and I planned this girl's trip and we were so excited. My husband was aware and outwardly supportive, encouraging me to go and have a good time. She is in poor health and there is a good chance that this was the last big trip I will ever take with her. While I was gone, I would call to check in and he sounded worse by the day. At first he said he was just feeling sorry for himself, then other times he would just be sobbing. He would not tell me what was wrong. He was posting a lot of poor me type of stuff to Facebook. My birthday rolled around on Thursday and he never called me. I finally called him that evening and asked why I hadn't heard from him. He kept crying and saying bizarre things. He finally hung up on me and wouldn't respond to any of my messages. I was extremely worried about him and had no idea what was going on. He picked my mom and I up from the airport on Saturday night. His behavior was very unusual. We dropped my mom off and got to our house after midnight. There was a beautifully wrapped gift on the dining room table, along with enormous balloons that said I love you and happy birthday. This was unusual for him, and I immediately felt suspicious. I was very angry with him for the way he behaved when I was gone, and his behavior was so odd that night that I felt very uncomfortable. Even the way he was breathing made me nervous. I had a bad feeling about the gift, and I decided to deal with it the next day. As I walked to the bedroom, he called out, "Are you going to open your gift?" I said no, I'm good, and went straight to bed. He was slumped in a chair in our living room the last time I saw him. The next morning, I woke up to find a self-destruction note next to the balloons and gift. He had left his wallet, phone, and smartwatch in a neat pile on his end table. His firearm was gone. After a brief, frantic search of our house and property, I called 911. What ensued was an 8-hour ordeal worthy of its own Dateline episode. I lost count of how many police agencies were out here. There were 4 dog teams from 2 counties. We live in a rural area and a helicopter came from our state capital to search for him, refueling twice in the process. Since he was armed, the police were wearing what looked like SWAT gear and they had huge guns. Here's where it gets bad. It almost makes me laugh to write that, because it already sounds pretty bad, right? The police asked if they could open the gift and I said yes. They brought it out of the house and opened it on the hood of a police cruiser. In the box were photos of myself and my ex-husband. We have been divorced over 15 years. These were honeymoon-type photos, if you get my drift. I had no idea they even existed. I certainly had no idea that they were packed away in a box of stuff that hadn't been opened in 15 years. I would have never, ever kept anything like that. He had also included lots of handwritten notes denigrating and humiliating me. Every police officer in our small town and every friend and family member who was here helping to search for him saw those pictures of me, exposed, in intimate situations with my ex-husband. I have never felt so exposed, humiliated, and embarrassed. Eventually the police called off the search and planned to resume the next day. They made us leave our home because they were afraid he would come back and hurt me. About an hour after I left our home, I received a call from the local hospital stating that he had just walked in, complaining of a headache. He had been gone 12 hours. He was agitated and seemed to be hallucinating. He said that he fell 10 feet off a ladder the day I left for my trip, and that he hit his head. He provided this explanation for his behavior while he was crying, hyperventilating and reporting hallucinations. He denied any self-destructive intent. He said he had went for a walk to clear his head, something he's never done even once in the years we've been married, then somehow ended up down at the river, where he slept on the ground off and on all day. I have been an RN for over 20 years. He had no injuries one would expect from a 10-foot fall. No bumps, bruises, or lacerations to his head. He was pretending to be confused and hallucinating. I voiced this to his ER nurses and they told me that they had just discussed the fact that they thought he was faking, too. It was a very warm day, and he was not sweaty or sunburned. His clothes were spotless. His shoes looked brand new, there wasn't even dirt or gravel stuck in the treads. I don't know where he was, but it was somewhere clean, comfortable, and air-conditioned. All while I and half of our state were out looking for his deceased body. Despite this, I comforted him, held him as he cried, reassured him, and tried to be supportive. He ended up in 2 psych hospitals for 10 days. He was legally held at the first, then I got him into a private psychiatric hospital. They evaluated him and suggested that he stay 28 days. He stayed 3, then came home. He feels great now. His 3 days of group therapy showed him that he has a fear-avoidant attachment style, and this is why he behaves like he does. Now that this has been established, he is ready to do his deep breathing and meditations and put this all behind us. He has taken very little responsibility for his actions. He feels like the gift was a pretty mean thing to do, but he thinks it was really not that bad and that I blew it out of proportion. He is holding tight to his story that he was in a dissociative fugue state the day he went missing. In the past, he has been very cold, inattentive, and downright mean at times. He has an explosive temper, but only with me. He has repeatedly ruined holidays and vacations with sulking, pouting, and just generally being a jerk. He has an established, serious problem with lying to me. But this just takes the cake. There are so many things to unpack here. One of the main ones is that my brother took his life several years ago and my husband knows how terribly that affected me. Another is that I was SA'd as a teenager. I confided in my husband about it once early in our marriage, and he went nuts. He screamed that he always knew that I was damaged goods, punched holes in the walls, and ran out and unloaded a firearm at the woods. I don't know why I stayed after that. But that gift was worse than the essay itself, because it came from someone who was supposed to love me and it was designed to hurt me on purpose. I feel incredibly violated. Now that he is home, he is acting like the husband of the year. I have tried to maintain a calm, supportive, therapeutic environment, mostly because I'm scared of him now. But he is beginning to show signs of frustration that I'm no longer comforting him and pretending that everything is okay. Tonight he said everything would have been fine if I hadn't called the police. I am so angry. My birthday is ruined forever. My trip with my mom was ruined. I'm incredibly traumatized and I have a panic attack every time I hear a helicopter. I am not doing well and I think I hate this guy. Thanks for listening.